Hi there, and welcome to the Salted Pepper, where we cook for real life using real food and we keep it real simple. And today we are going to make a delicious sandwich. We're going to make a patty melt. Now, a patty melt, if you're not familiar with it, is a sandwich made of cheese, hamburger patties, and usually some sauteed onions. So we're going to do all that really fast, really simply, right in the Ninja Foodi. So let's get started. First thing we're gonna do is take onion. Now I'm using a Vidalia sweet onion, but you could use a regular yellow onion. You could even use a red onion. That choice is totally yours. I'm gonna cut the onion in half through the root end. So the root end is here and the stem end is here. So I'm just cutting it right in half. And then I'm gonna find the stem end, cut a little bit off there. Just peel the first couple of layers away from the onion, because they can be kind of tough. First of all, you want to get the paper off, of course, but then even the second layer is kind of like a little on the tough side, so I take that out. All right, and now we're just going to slice it down straight. Watch your fingers, keep them back. Go down with your knife, up, down. We're making them about a 1/4 inch slice. Now, when you get to this point, you're getting kind of close to your fingers, just turn it back over so that you have more of a flat surface to work with. This is the safe way to cut an onion. And then again, you can just do this. And it'll give you little strips. It'll be perfectly fine in the sandwich. Plus, look at that. We hardly lost any of the onion that way. All right, so we just dump these into the bottom of the inner pot of the Ninja Foodi. No need to season them with any salt or pepper or anything like that, but we are gonna spritz them just a little bit with some olive oil. So like 3 or 4 spritzes, and that's good. All right, now let's get to making the patties. Now what I'm using for the hamburger patties is a ground chuck 80-20 blend. And I have 8 ounces total of the ground chuck. And we're gonna make them into 2-ounce patties. The reason why we're gonna make them small is because you want them to fit on the sandwich. I wanna get 4 patties on the sandwich. And this sandwich is meant to be shared with somebody. So it's a big sandwich and you wanna cut it in half and share it. It's absolutely delicious. What I have here is a salt and pepper blend. I like to keep my seasonings very simple when I'm working with ground beef for hamburger patties, and salt and pepper is all I ever use. You can certainly spice them up any way you like, but I'm just gonna use salt and pepper. I have 1 teaspoon of salt and a 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. Now, ordinarily, I go right into my salt container, my salt and pepper containers right here. But because I'm gonna be forming these patties by hand, I don't wanna get any contamination into here. So I went ahead and pre-measured it out. Anything I don't use will go into the trash. Okay, this is a Pampered Chef scoop, and it measures out perfect 2-ounce burger, or it's great for meatballs too. So I'm gonna just put 1 scoop down, and all I wanna do is just form these into small, flat patties. You want them sort of thin. You don't want to overwork the meat either. That's very important, or your burger will get kind of tough and dry out a little bit. So we're just going to do a quick, there we go, that looks good. And we're going to do that for 4 patties. And try to make them about the same thickness so that they cook evenly. All right, that looks good. All right, I've got one more to do. What I wanna do is get the rack in now, and I wanna get the Ninja Foodi preheating. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the rack on the high position, close the lid, turn the Ninja Foodi on, turn it to broil, and preheat for 10 minutes. Now, I should have probably done this at the beginning of the video, and I forgot. You know, it happens. So just let it preheat for 10 minutes. You can do it before you start making up your burgers. That'll have it go a little bit quicker for you. Now this one's a little bit bigger, just a tiny bit. So I'll take a look and see if there's one of these that seem a little smaller, and I'll add to it. There we go. That looks perfect. Now I'm going to just salt and pepper them, and then we'll wait for the Ninja Foodi to finish preheating. And I'm just like kind of spreading it over and kind of patting it into both sides. This looks like just enough seasoning. All right, that is perfect. Now I'm gonna go ahead and get my hands washed up. We'll let the Ninja Foodi finish preheating. We'll get these on the rack to cook. They'll cook with the onions, and then we'll assemble our sandwich. We'll grill it up, and then we'll be eating. All right, so we just have a few seconds to go on the preheat. It's important to preheat when you're making burgers, as well as some other things, because you want the Ninja Foodi to be really hot so that it starts to cook the outside of your burger patty quickly. That will reduce the amount that it sticks. That's also why I heat up the rack or the basket before I put any kind of burger patties in. I want them to be preheated and really super hot, because that'll start to get that sear that we like to see. Okay, great. So I'm just gonna open these up, and I'm gonna go ahead and put the 4 patties on the rack. You should hear them sizzle, which I just did. All right, absolutely perfect. Now we're gonna take the broil again to 10 minutes and hit start. We're gonna let it go 10 minutes, but we will flip at 5. All right, so we've been cooking for 5 minutes on broil, and they look really good, but I notice immediately what I forgot to do, and that is to put the thumbprint in the middle. That will prevent them from puffing up. It's gonna be fine though, no issues. The last time I made the sandwich, I actually used my burger press, and that does it for you, but we'll be fine. So I'm just gonna flip these over, and we're gonna go another 5 minutes. Now this will produce a medium well burger after we're done cooking it on our sandwich. So if you like it more well done or more rare, adjust your time accordingly. You don't want it too rare though for a patty melt, because you don't want a lot of juice to come out while we're grilling our bread, because it will make it very soggy. So all right, we're gonna go 5 more minutes, and then we'll be ready to assemble our sandwich. All right, we're just finishing up the last few seconds of our 10 minutes on broil. We'll let it go through the cool down cycle, which just takes a second or two. And then we will get them out, the burger patties, onto some paper towels to drain. I didn't do this the first time, and what I noticed is that they put out just a little too much juice when we were grilling the bread, and that created the bread to kind of split a little bit. So it's important to just kind of put them here to drain just for a minute while we assemble the sandwich. I'll definitely put your thumb, make a thumbprint in these, because you can see that they've kind of puffed up a little bit. They're still gonna be good though. All right, so we'll just get that extra grease blotted off there and put those to the side. And now what we need to do is get our onions out and flip our rack over. I'm not even gonna worry about cleaning the rack, because any kind of grease there is just gonna add flavor to the bread. All right, so I'm just gonna set this over here for a second. All right, so we just wanna get our onions out now, and do not worry, they are gonna look dark. That adds to the flavor. They are perfect on this sandwich, I promise you. Oh my gosh, they smell so good. I love sauteed onions. And it's so easy to do in the Ninja Foodi, especially if you're broiling something on top because it just does it for you in the bottom while you're broiling. All right, so set those aside and then let's get our sandwich assembled. But what I'm gonna do is go ahead and close the lid. We'll just keep the heat in. We don't need to turn it on or preheat again, but just close your lid so that your heat stays inside. All right, so for this sandwich, what I have chosen is sourdough bread. You could use rye bread, you could use white bread, you could use whatever kind of bread you want, but you can see this is a pretty large slice of bread, and that's why it's gonna be a sandwich for two. If you wanted to do just a regular size piece of sandwich bread, you could do that. You would just put 2 patties on each and you would make 2 sandwiches. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is get the outside buttered a little bit. And I like to use softened butter. Obviously, it spreads a lot easier. And I use a butter bell all the time for that. I keep my butter in it. You can keep it at room temperature. Add cold water, change the water every day, and you always have perfectly spreadable butter. So I'm gonna take about a teaspoon and spread it on the sandwich in a thin layer. You don't want too much. Sometimes you can go overboard. So if you put too much butter on a sandwich before you grill it, this is whether you do it in the Ninja Foodi or on the stovetop, it will become soggy because the water in the butter steams up and softens the bread too much. So you really just want a nice thin layer. And then I always make sure that I'm buttering it the right way because I always tend to get it wrong. So I want to make sure that, that both sides are buttered so that the bread matches up. This is a kind of a loaf of like an artisan sourdough bread, and it's kind of a strange shape. So I want to definitely make sure that it matches up. Okay, wonderful. So now we're done with the butter. And now we're gonna get the rest of our sandwich done. So I like to go ahead and put mayonnaise on right now. You don't have to, but I'm gonna put about a teaspoon of mayonnaise on the inside. Wonderful. All right, so each slice gets 2 pieces of cheese. Now I am just using regular cheddar, slice of cheddar cheese. You could use Swiss cheese, that's very common, especially if you use rye bread with Swiss cheese. That's very common for a patty melt. But I'm gonna keep it super simple with what I had, and that is slices of cheddar cheese. Okie dokie, so let's get our burger patties on. Well, I can't wait for this. This is gonna be a good sandwich. And just position them so that they fit on the bread, kind of like that. You could do them like all 4, but I kind of like to stagger them a little bit, and that way you get a little bit of the burger with every bite. All right, now flip it over. Now, the last thing I'm gonna do is just add a little bit of this garlic bread sprinkle to the outside. This is certainly optional. It was a suggestion made by my husband, and it actually turned out really nicely, so I'm gonna do that again, and I'm just gonna sprinkle it over. All right, now, the best way to put this on and off the rack is with the rack out of the Ninja Foodi, just because it's a deep pot and you don't wanna burn yourself. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the rack back over here. You want the rack in the low position. You can't do this in the high position because what will happen is it will be too high to the broil element at the top, the heating element, and then you're gonna just like smush your bread. You're gonna get bread burned onto the top. So you do need to do it in the low position. I'm just gonna take this and, whoop, I lost a burger. That doesn't happen once they cook though. All right, great. Perfect. And now I'm just gonna sprinkle the other side and we're gonna get it back in and we're gonna broil for about 5 to 7 minutes. And we'll flip probably after about 4 or 5. I just keep an eye on it. Make sure I can touch that. Yep, good. All right, back into the Ninja Foodi. Lid down, broil. I'll set it for 10, but I'll just keep an eye on it. It doesn't usually take 10 minutes. So after about 5 minutes, I'll check it, probably remove the rack, flip it, put it back in for another 3 to 5 minutes. Well, I have to laugh at myself right now. These wonderful onions, which I happen to love so much on a patty melt, I forgot to put them on the sandwich. It happens. All right, so I just took it out of here carefully because it started to actually melt the cheese a little bit, even though we only went like 30 minutes, even though we only went like 30 seconds or so, or a minute. I'm gonna leave that running though, just so it stays hot while I just add these onions on. Because they do add such an incredible flavor. All right, that looks great. And now we'll get this back in the Ninja Foodi. All right, there we go. Now our sandwich is fully assembled and we will broil it for about 5 minutes. I'll check it and we'll flip it and then we'll go another 3 to 5 minutes depending on how it's looking. All right, so we've been broiling for 5 minutes and let's take a peek here. And it is starting to brown up. It looks good. So let's go ahead and get the rack out. I really recommend that you take the rack out when you're gonna flip a sandwich like this because it's just hard to get the right kind of leverage when you go down into that deep pot. And then also make sure that you have gloves on so you can hold the rack steady while you go underneath the sandwich. All right, so I'm gonna keep this running while I flip just to keep it hot, and we can adjust the time up. You know, that's the beauty of the Ninja Foodi. You can just keep peeking at it and adjust the time. So all right, so I've got a large, long spatula here, and I'm just gonna lift the edge of this bread up and kind of go underneath gently. The one thing that makes it a little bit more difficult with the rack is the fact that there's slats in the rack. So you just kind of want to work it around so that you don't get underneath of one of those slats. And just get it to where you can get a good grip on the sandwich. Make sure it's put together. There we go. Now I'm going to take this off because it's going to make it a little bit easier to flip. And we're going to flip it. Now I actually put my spatula a little bit through that bread, but you know what? That is not going to matter. It's going to toast up beautifully. Perfect. All right, so now we're going to go back in the Ninja Foodi and let this other side get nice and brown and crispy. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this back up to 6 minutes, but I'm going to keep an eye on it, okay? I think it's going to take probably another 3 to 5 minutes to finish broiling on that side. And then we get to taste it, which is the best part. All right, so let's take a peek at this and see how it's browning up. Oh, it looks really good. You know, I think we're done. So let's take it out. Let's flip it and see, do we need to go another minute on the other side? You can always do that too. So let's just take a peek here. Now, it's much easier to flip at this point because it's all put together and it's toasty. So let's go ahead and flip it over. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to put a little bit more color on this side over here. This rack loves to slide around on you, so be careful. All right, so I'm going to go back in maybe just 2 more minutes just to get that other side nice and brown. All right, so it's been about a minute and a half or so. Let's just take a look. Oh my gosh, it looks perfect. Yay. All right, so I'm gonna lift it out here. Now, if you're not gonna eat your sandwich right away, you want it to cool down a little bit, leave it on the rack, because if you set it on a solid surface, the bottom will start to kind of steam and then you won't keep your crunchy bread. So just keep it on the rack until you're ready to cut it. And I think we're ready to cut it now though. So I'm gonna go ahead and get it off the rack. Perfect. Yummy. All right, let me just set this over here. All right, so I suggest using a serrated knife to do this. It's just gonna cut through everything. And you can cut it this way, you can cut it this way. It's not gonna make any difference. I think I'm gonna be a little fancy here and just go down this way. Oh, wow, that crunch is amazing. that. Perfectly melted cheese, caramelized onions. The cook on the burger looks perfect. Wow. I guess this will be my piece here. Perfectly crunchy. And that little bit of garlic bread sprinkle, oh, it adds so much flavor to the bread. I'm super excited here. I'm gonna set that over to the side. Go ahead and get this on a plate here. And I do need to let it cool off for just a minute, because if I bit into that right now, that cheese is super duper hot and it would burn my mouth. So I'm just gonna wait just a minute and then I'll taste it. All right, let's give it a taste here. Oh my gosh, it looks beautiful. The bread is perfect. It is crunchy, but the inside is still a little soft, so it's not super brittle. It's perfect. All right, here we go. Wow. This could be my new favorite sandwich. I always said a Reuben was my favorite sandwich. And I do have a recipe for a delicious Reuben, which I will link to right up there. This one might be taking its place though. The flavor of the burger is perfectly, it's perfectly seasoned. I love the caramelization of the onions. They add such a good flavor. I happen to like the cheddar cheese slices. I mean, I think it would be good with Swiss, but especially if you did it on rye, but I think the sourdough with the cheddar cheese and the perfectly cooked burger, wow, absolutely delicious. Let me take another little bite. Yum. This is restaurant quality sandwich here, and you can make it in the Ninja Foodi so easy at home. That's why I love the Ninja Foodi. Perfection. Absolute perfection. So a couple of things went wrong in this video, and I could have chosen to reshoot it, but I decided not to, because you know what? That's real life. And what happened? I didn't put the thumbprint in my burger. I forgot the onions. I put my spatula through the sandwich, and guess what? It didn't matter. So if you make a mistake in the kitchen, keep on rolling with it. As long as the food turns out the way you like it, it was a success.